So now we need to really work on these trigger volumes and the trigger volume script, because currently it's only set up to do one thing. It's only there to store an item, let the player know that item, so the player can take it away. Now for this example, the trigger volume, we need to set it up so it can do two things. First of all, it can be a placeholder for an item, just like I described. And secondly, we want it to act as a switch. Now whether this is a switch for a door, or whether it's just a trigger volume in front of the door, but you still want to activate it, it's basically going to be a switch, a button. So we need to set up this trigger volume so it can act like that. I'm just going to borrow one of these. And let's move that way back somewhere else. Okay, now this is not an item anymore, so let's get rid of all that stuff. Let's collapse these. And we don't want the key holder. It's not a key holder anymore. So we just have the trigger volume with the trigger volume script. Now I'm going to bring in one of my doors. We started with green before. Let's start with the blue door. Make a child of that and zero it out. Just bring it in. So there's our door. Now I'm probably going to be coming in to the door only one way. So I'll probably even put the door right back at the end of the trigger volume like that. Okay, and I could probably even make it a bit wider. So let me take that out because I'm going to change the scale here. And on the X, let's just even make it 8. Alright, now I'll bring the door back in just so I know what trigger volume is going with what. Okay, so I have a trigger item which is now missing. Drag the door in there to start with, so that's all set up, and save the scene. Like I said, we need to develop this script so it's more than just a pick up items script. Let's create a public boolean first. So a variable. Now like I said, for this script I'm making one script, but I want it to have two functions, so I can use a boolean here. Now, how am I going to class it? Let's call it is trigger for item. So is this trigger volume going to be for an item? Yes or no? If not, it's going to be for a door. So that's a boolean, and we'll set it by default to true, actually, because so far they're all set up to be that. So instead of me going through each one of the objects that are already on the stage and setting them to true, let's just set that default to true to start. Okay. Trigger zone, player trigger script. So the player can read all these variables on this script, so I don't think we actually even need to do anything else here, because all we're doing is feeding the player if they are in the trigger zone, and then we give it this script so the player can read all these variables and make decisions. So actually that is all the setup. Yeah, that is all the setup we need for the trigger volume. I'm going to save that out. Check we have any compilation errors. And like I said, we can quickly look at these. And this is a trigger for an item. That's true because that's a key. That's a key, so that's true. That's a key, that's true. Now let's go back to our door. Okay, this is not for an item. So this is not a pickup, this is a button. So I'll set that to false. Okay, and we'll save the scene. Now I've left all these variables public because apart from the player we can drop in manually. So I left that public for that reason. But every other item has to be read by the player's script, so we need them public. So it does make the inspector a little messy, but we need them public so that the player can read those variables. Now there is a little trick called @hide in inspector, so they remain public but they don't show in the inspector. We might get to that later, but now let's work on how the player script can recognize if this trigger is for an item to pick up, or whether it's a door to open, or it's a button to push. And if it's a button to push, do we meet the requirements to push that button? Okay. So if in trigger zone, check if the item is visible. Okay, and there immediately check if the item is visible, is working off the item. Well, that's fair enough, because the item is still going to be the door. So are we looking at the door or the switch or not? So that part still counts. Okay. Now here's where it's all happening. When we push the E. When we push the E, check if the item is visible. So before we decide that we're going to remove the item, let's see if we are collecting an item or we're opening a door. So it's going to fit right in here. If, and really delete all this commented stuff out now, because that was just an example, and that was just part of developing the script up to this point. So if we fall down here, we're in the trigger zone, so we have a reference to the trigger script already. So let's just check if the trigger script is a trigger for picking up an item. Okay, so far I've only made one change to each script, so we want to see what's going on. Actually, let's just even put a debug in there. If trigger script is trigger for item, else debug log this is not an item, this is a button. It's a button, it's a switch, it's a door, but this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be using this to activate something. So it's like a button, we're turning something on. And before that happens, we need to check if we have the item that we need to make that activation happen. Well, let's just see if I haven't stuffed anything up majorly here. So hit play. Okay, there goes all. We have the trigger volume. Let me just bring up the, oh, I don't even need to bring up the player script because I added that GUI in. I hit E, I have a red key. Okay, I'm not looking at it, E. I have a red key and a green key. Now we're going to come to the door. Okay, so again, I'm in the trigger volume and I have the message popping up. What happens if I press E? This is not an item, this is a button. Great, so everything's working so far. Our trigger is telling us whether our trigger volume is to pick up an item or if it's to do something else. This is not an item, this is a button. Okay, so now we need to start working on how we can open this door. How can we make this happen? Now we're playing with game objects and they all have different kinds of names and things, don't they? So we have key and door. So I might have to do some funky stuff with splitting strings by characters so that we can read what's happening here. Okay, how am I going to put this together? It's going to be very confusing again. You'll see it all happening and you can always watch and pause and try and absorb what's going on here. So this is not an item, this is a button. So what do we need to do? Let's just put in some comments so we can think about it. Check what button the door checkbox button. This trigger volume is 4. So we need to check what door we're at, and then we need to check if we have a key for that. Let's just call it door. We know it's for door. I just wanted to use that generic expression so that you can see that even though it's a door, it's pretty much a button. Even if we walk up to a button and push the button, there might be some state where we need a condition to check if we have an item so that we can push that button. Just say we turn the power on somewhere else with another button. Okay, this is a door. So we're just going to work with doors and keys. I say we check what door this trigger volume is for. So what is this door? Basically the color. We check if we have a key for that door. So let's do the first part first. So var, what do we want to find out? We want to find out the name of this door. So var, so it's the trigger item name. It's be of type string, and it's going to equal the trigger script, trigger item, trigger script, trigger item, which is game object, dot name. Alright, let's just quickly do a debug and run that. Now you can see all the times I use debug. That's why I've made one in my own script, but I never use it because this is all instructional. So I want you to see what's going on. Okay, debug log trigger item name equals plus the trigger item name. So what have we found out when we walk up to this? We should make it closer. Oh, the other side of the coin, let's just move the player closer. Player close to that door. That's going to make things quicker. I've made a lot of changes, so save the scene. Okay, I'm going to hit play. There's nothing in my debug. Enter the trigger volume. If I press E, trigger item name is door blue. Great, so we're getting there so far. We know this isn't an item to pick up. This is the door, and we have the name of the door. So now we need to split that up because we have these items called door. That's the blue one. Okay, door underscore blue and key underscore blue. Now it is possible to split this string up. So we can just find out what the color is after that underscore. So trigger item name split, because you'll see why this name is here in a moment. This will be a string, but this will be an array because we're splitting one string. We're going to split it into two strings. Equals the trigger item name, so that's string dot split. And what are we going to split it by? We're going to split it by the underscore. And I don't remember if you put. You don't put a comma in here. Alright, I'll find out soon enough. Alright, a little smiley face again. So I'm going to split it by underscores. Now let's see if that throws. Yeah, expecting closing parentheses. What happens if we put a comma there? I don't think it's a comma. No appropriate version for string split for the argument string int. Okay, I need to quickly look this up. It's not in the front of my mind at the moment. Okay, I could have even done that on screen. I just simply opened Google, typed in Unity string split, picked up an example, and this is where I was getting it wrong. I need to put the 0 in between square braces here, so that's where I was going wrong. So let's just put some square braces around that 0. So I'm turning a single string into an array. Yay, and there it goes away. Now just to show you what that's done, now we're expecting this to have two values now. So split, and let's check out what's in 0. That's going to be exactly that. And then we're going to plus, and let's find out what is in position 1. And then you'll see what I'm doing with all this name, splitting string, and reading the name. Great, no errors. Let's hit play and see what our debug tells us. Come up to the door, hit E, pause it there. So this is everything that did. Now our door has the name door underscore blue. Now I've split that string, door blue, by the underscore. So I've taken that away, I've split it in half. So the first element of that array is door. Okay, so there's door right there. And then the second part of that array is blue. There it is, blue. So now I know what color it is, and I've taken away that door. So similarly, I can do the same to this name of the key. And then I can just check if blue is equal to blue. And that's what I'm getting at. So I'm even going to pause, I'm going to stop the video here and immediately continue just to try and keep these videos a little shorter.